Well, good afternoon. This is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on June the 3rd. That's a Sunday afternoon, and we're out in the garden and we are doing some transplanting. I just put the melons in, the honeydew melons, and I'm going to show you a little trick to stop your plants being destroyed by the cutworm. So basically what you're going to do here is get one of the little pots that the seedlings came in, and you're just going to cut the bottom out of that. And there you have the perfect little protector against the cutworm. Okay, so there are my honeydew melon plants, and as you can see, it is a fairly cloudy. In fact, there's a little bit of rain coming down right now as we speak, and this is perfect for transplanting, perfect weather for transplanting. So you are just going to take the plant, kind of scrunch up the leaves there, and just very gently ease that into the ground. Around the plant. Now the cutworm travels just below the surface of the soil, and anything that it bumps into that is edible it would just chew through, and so quite often what happens is you come out in the morning and you see that your plants are just keeled over, and it looks like someone for sure has just taken a knife and cut those off right at the soil line. And so yeah, they just need a little bit of protection whilst they're still tender. Once they toughen up a bit and harden off, there'll be no problem whatsoever. So as you can see, we have some marigolds to put in yet. I've got my first tomato plant in. Here's a few more. And anyways, I would like to just give you a quick rundown of how I transpot my plants. I pull back a small hole and I pour some manure in there. This is my worm castings, wonderful stuff. And I move that around to open it up a little bit. Now with tomato plants, I don't know if you know about this. Okay, so you've got your tomato plant there ready to transplant, and and you see these two lower arms here. I am just going to nip them off, all these lower ones here. Okay, so I don't know if you can see those little hairs just around the base here and all the way up the stem. Okay, those hairs will turn into roots. Okay, so I am going to plant this plant up to about here, just below the next set of leaves, and that will very quickly grow into a good healthy root ball. Okay, so the next thing I do is I'm going to line that with water. Okay, and just very gently I just squeeze the pot a little bit and then push the bottom. And that will come out in a nice, always keep your tag so you don't forget what it is you're putting in. This is a beefsteak tomato, and I just set that in there, pour the soil around it, and another little water just to top it off. There we go, put your little tag in, and that is how I transplant my seedlings. Anyway, I seem to have pretty good success so far, so yeah, I'm going to get on with that. I just love these lilies. Aren't they beautiful? They're going in the front garden to add a little bit of colour. Okay, so we're in between raindrops here, so let's take a little walk around the garden. Those are pepper plants, and these are hot pepper plants. And I've got some Brussels there and some cabbage. And as you can see, the greenhouse is done, and like I say, once this gets charged up with water, I'm going to make a half cover on this. It'll stop where this wooden strip is running down the outside, so there's plenty of ventilation. Now what I'm doing here, this stuff here is hot mustard, and the fact that it's growing so well tells me that the fusarium in here is just about done with. It's nice and clean, and I'm going to show you something in a minute that I've discovered, and it's kind of an interesting indicator. So the beets are doing really well, and now I just transplanted these, and you can see that they look a little wilty, and this is what they call transplant shock. But you can see they come back at different speeds, but these will all come back. They won't die, they'll be just fine. There's some little marigolds in there. We like marigolds. And there you go, there's my melon, honeydew melon plants forward to a hill, and this will be absolutely covered in no time at all. And there you go, there's my cutworm protectors all in place. But yeah, we've had a nice couple of damp days, and so I managed to get some transplanting done. These were done a day before the beets were, and you can see that these looked exactly the same way. You would have thought they were all dead, but here they are now. The leaves have reinflated themselves. You know, you might lose a couple of these big outer leaves, but you can see that there's new growth coming on nice and strong in the center. And I'm just picking out of these ones. As I see a big one, a couple of lettuces there, I just pull them out and have them for supper. This is the kale. It's doing really well. And now I don't know if you can see what I was talking about, keeping your rows a little bit wider apart. Now I've been cleaning down between the kale, and you can see it's just pushing a little ridge over the bottom edge of those plants, and keeping them nice and straight. Anyway, it sure makes weeding an awful lot easier when you plant things out like this. Give yourself a little bit of space. And this bed is yet to be prepared. Here's a little mustard here and a sunflower, but this is where the cabbages and the Brussels sprouts are going to go. But we've had some incredibly hot weather just lately, and it has been quite dry, but we've had some good rainfalls in the last week or so, and it's really brought things on quite strongly. So you can see the peas, another week and they will be up to this first rung, and they will be flowering, and I'll be eating some peas. But look at I've got a sunflower bed here. Look at this. I was going to give some away to friends, but somehow I never got around to it. I may still yet, but I may just leave these in here for the birds, seeing as they're doing so well. And asparagus. Well, I'm eating asparagus every day now. It's funny how there's always one that gets away from you. But these are a nice, big, thick stems. They taste absolutely delicious, and yum, yum, yum. Chives. So I'm just sort of planting mustard as I go, because this fusarium just seems to be an ongoing problem. But here is something I wanted to show you. Okay, now I treated this bed last year with hot mustard. This has been replanted in hot mustard, and you can see where some is doing really well. It's very robust, and there in the center it's dying off. This bed I treated last year, but it didn't come on very strong, and you can see the stuff in the center is really quite stunted and hasn't come along like the other plants, and I believe that is because there is still quite heavy fusarium in this area. And this last bed, this is the first treatment, and you can see how poorly the mustard is doing. Now, I planted all of these at the same time with the same seeds, with the same amount of everything was exactly the same, but you can see, like I say, how much different the growth is. So these two beds here, once the mustard comes to flower, I will cut those down, churn it into the soil. These are going to be potato beds this year. And this one, I am going to grind this in. I'm going to get some, there'll be enough here to share into this bed, and then I will reseed and retreat. I'm bound and determined I am going to get on top of this situation. Fusarium is a fungus that is worldwide. There are all kinds of plants that are now in trouble from fusarium. The banana is one of them, and coffee plants are another. And we really only eat one kind of banana. It's called a Big Tom, and they're working like crazy to find a strain that is resistant to fusarium. And so you could either see those bananas completely disappear, or just become so hideously expensive that you can't afford them except as a luxury. So here we have two kinds of basil I put in. There's a lemon basil and a Genovese basil. 3 sage plants, and this is regular oregano, and this here is Greek oregano. 2 thyme plants, 2 parsleys over there with the sunflowers. Now that mint, that glorious green mint, that is spearmint, and this here I transplanted this year is a bed of chocolate mint, and it does unbelievably taste like chocolate. Okay, the dill is coming up, doing really well. This is lemon balm. Beautiful plant. It just has that most incredible smell. And over there at the back behind the lemon balm is pineapple mint. This is my cilantro. It's another one of my favorite herbs. Very aromatic, very fragrant. But just take a look at this pineapple mint. The leaves are quite thick, and there's also like a little fuzz on the back of them, and it really does smell like pineapple. It's a kind of a soft mint. Anyway, that and my spearmint, they will be going into this year's batch of creme de menthe. Now, I don't know if you can see in there, there's a bit of a reflection on the water, so I'm getting as close to the side of this tank as possible. But I don't know if you can see those little things in there squiggling around. This is mosquito larvae. And of course they fill any still water source. And so what I do to resolve this problem is I use minnows. There's my bag of minnows. We're just letting the temperature in the water unify. It's been in there for about half an hour now, so it is good to go. But the minnows will just chow down on those little mosquito larvae. I don't know if you can see in there, but this is a very cheap trick. It cost me, I think, $16 for 2 dozen minnows. And here we are, we're going to let them loose. We'll just untie the knot in the bag. And we are just going to pour those into that tank, and they'll go down to the bottom and acclimatize themselves even further, and they will chow down on all of those mosquito larvae, and they'll be gone, and they'll keep them completely clear. They'll also clean the algae. You can just see a little further down the barrel, down below the water, you can see a sort of green tinge starting already. That's the algae forming inside of this barrel. And then you can use the minnows in the fall for fall fishing. It's absolutely perfect. It's a win-win situation. It's a completely natural way to keep the mosquitoes out of your water barrels. There you go. I just top dressed the onions a little bit with some worm castings, and again, you know, it's amazing. I don't know how many onions there are in there. There's certainly enough to keep me going through the entire winter. And they're nicely spaced apart, so they're not crowding each other out, but there is plenty of room in between to run this three-pronged hoe. This is my main weeding tool right here, and it fits perfectly down in between. It's a great way to weed. It's an easy way to weed. And I don't know if anybody's noticing here, these dog bones that I have. I used to have a dog, and she would go through bones like crazy, and when she'd finished gnawing all the meat and whatever off them, I just throw them in the garden. And this is your slow release bone meal. Now, I don't know if you can see right here, this is an onion seed pod coming out. Now I just take that off and chuck it away, because we don't want seeds, we want onions. And of course, if the plant is putting energy into making seeds, then it's not putting the energy into making a nice big onion. So these will come out at different times during the month of June. And you'll see just as they start, just nip them off, and you just go through them as you see them. These are my early potatoes. I'll be digging some of these up in about 2 or 3 weeks time, and these are like your new potatoes. And those 2 beds down there will be where I have my winter potatoes. So we have little raspberries forming. It's going to be a good chow down. You can see the all the heads in there. There's nothing better than coming down and picking a few raspberries every day off your own raspberry canes. These peas are also doing very well. They're climbing up the mesh. And this here is the stinging nettle. I just like to keep a little crop right here. I eat the tips, the young tips in springtime. They are great greens. What a wonderful color. They are so healthy, and of course when they're fully grown you can make a tincture out of them. And I think there's so many remedies for stinging nettle that I am going to do an entire video just on stinging nettle. Now I've got some onions in here along with the mustard, but again, you can see in the center part, look, you see there's some fusarium in there. And it's quite interesting because I went to the Ministry of Agriculture to find out remedies for fusarium, and he did actually say that you can find, you know, in a field of wheat, for example, that it is literally in one corner and not in the other. It has very specific conditions it likes to be in, and so As I say, it's everywhere. I could have taken all of this soil out and redone it, but you know, well, I'd like to experiment, and I came across this way of dealing with it, and it seems to have been successful in my other beds. I've cleared out the other ones up there. They're doing real good. I just cleaned out the strawberry bed. I don't know if you remember, but I basically cleaned this right out last year, so I'm not really expecting too much from this bed. I'm just going to let them grow and send out their runners, and again try and fill this bed with plants that seem to be resistant to fusarium. And there's my garlic in there. I've netted that to try and keep the leek moth out, and I was just weeding, and I did see one plant that had some leek moth damage on there, but it's certainly better than it was. So the netting seems to be a good solution for excluding the leek moth. Now you may wonder why I keep my garden sort of unkempt a little bit and a little bit rustic, but you know, it's amazing how many animals, mice and this kind of stuff, live in behind these plants. Rhubarb flowering away there, birds nesting in the lilac bush here, and they all help to keep my garden free of bugs, and it seems to be working really well. I have very little parasite damage on my plants, and so these little corners, this is where garter snakes get in and hide. This is perfect garter snake territory, and if you can get a garter snake in your garden, boy oh boy, they are going to chow down on slugs, all kinds of nasty little grubs that you do not want eating your produce. And just got a new load of wood, so I'm starting to split that up and get that into the woodshed. And there's my little friend, the chippy. Yep, he's kind of getting used to me. Still not quite sure what the heck is going on, but I have been leaving peanuts down for him, and of course you can see he's got a black walnut in his mouth. Funny little thing. So here we are. When you live in a rural area and you have a wood stove, you're always thinking about winter and getting your winter supply of wood in. This is all ash. It's a wonderful wood to split because it is a nice clean straight grain. This is what they make cricket bats out of. So there you go, that is my late spring, early summer garden catch-up. And welcome to my living garden. Okay, so this is Hound Dog Steve signing off. You take care, have yourself a great week. I've been a little tardy with my other videos. I'm going to be making 2 videos tonight, I hope. There's just so much going on in the world. Yeah, so there you go. So we'll talk very, very soon. You take care now. Bye-bye.